Hello, and welcome to the Step Stories podcast. I'm your host, Robin Breuner, and I'm so happy to welcome my guest here today, Carrie Siravo. Hi, Carrie.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. We're finally seeing the sun. I'm in Northern California, and we had just weeks of rain and flooding, and so I'm in a good mood because the sun's finally out. And I know where you live, the sun is always out, right?
It's either out or it's not. There's no in between.
Right. I know you're in your nice season. Actually, I'm coming to visit there
Yeah.
next week, so
Oh,
I
yay.
maybe can actually meet you in person.
Yes, absolutely. That would be awesome.
Tell us about where you are, actually.
So I'm in Coral Springs, Florida.
Yeah. We could talk about what you do a little bit because I know you must be
Yeah.
coming off a super busy time.
Yes.
Tell
So I'm a hairstylist and I
Yeah.
own a small boutique salon in Coral Springs. So coming out of holiday season, it was a rough one this year. I will say that. It was definitely super busy, but I'm super fortunate for all of my clients.
That's great. And I know you've got a family, little kids to take care of. You're super active with their baseball. I wanted to have Carrie on today because she has a story about her son and her family and a wonderful husband who stepped in as a stepfather. And I wanted to share this inspirational story that started with a lot of heartache. And so tell us a little bit about your story, your background, where'd you grow up?
So I actually grew up in Coral Springs. I was born in Kendall, Miami, but right after Hurricane Andrew, we moved up to Coral Springs, and I've been here since.
All right. Well, I know that your story started with a lot of emotional pain, and then you found happiness by creating this successful blended family. Do you want to just start telling about the story and how you got to where you are today?
Sure.
Okay.
So I met my ex-husband when I was about 21. We met at the gym through some mutual friends and immediately hit it off. And we had kind of just a really fun kind of whirlwind romance is what it kind of felt like. We were young, um, and we ended up getting married when I was 23, which was really young.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we honestly had a really great relationship, and we ended up getting pregnant when I was 24, and we lost our first baby at 13 weeks, which was super heartbreaking. Um, but then I got pregnant with my son Camden. And around the time that I was in my first trimester, I think I was about 6, 7 weeks, um, we separated. And stories kind of differ between, I guess, him and I, and what I feel happened, what he feel happened. But I definitely feel he was having an emotional relationship with another woman, and they definitely connected and they were talking a lot. And I think ultimately it was just the downfall of our relationship. Um, and by the time I was 8 weeks pregnant, I was living on my own.
And how did you adapt to that? Were you working at a salon then too?
Yes, so I was working full time as a hairstylist at a salon. And I ended up actually having a lot of health issues in the beginning of my pregnancy. So I ended up around that same time being put on bed rest by my doctor because I had something that was called a subchorionic hemorrhage.
Mm.
So I had bleeding from a different part of my uterus that thankfully wasn't affecting the baby and the pregnancy, but I had to stay off my feet. So being in my line of work, that was really hard.
Oh yeah.
Um, so I was on bed rest for a couple weeks and then I was able to go back slowly. And yeah, I think pretty much that situation cleared up on its own by about 21 weeks, which was good. And then I was back full time in the salon at that point.
Were you living by yourself then?
I was. It was just me and my dog Jade.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was taking care of her and living on my own and being pregnant. And again, I think I had just turned 25 in my first trimester of my pregnancy. So it was a lot of growing up for sure.
Absolutely. Uh, so you handled this all by yourself. New experience.
hmm
Tough enough when you are married to be handling that, especially the bed rest and working. What happened after that?
So I would say right after the holidays, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. There was an issue with the property management company that owned the house we were living in, and ultimately it ended my lease, which I was kind of freaking out about, but at the same time, it was kind of good because I was actually able to move home with my parents and they were able to help me, which was great because my baby that was supposed to be due on St. Patrick's Day made a very early arrival on February 5th.
Hmm.
So he was premature. Luckily, he was super healthy and nothing was wrong. But he had a little bit of a long road in the NICU. But thank God he was super healthy. So
Thank God. Well, was your ex-husband around at all during that time?
no, the hospital story is kind of crazy. I went into the hospital on Sunday evening, and it was actually the night before we were supposed to do our divorce at the courthouse. So my doctor thinks the stress of everything just totally threw my body into full blown labor. So when I got to the hospital Sunday night, they were trying to stop my labor and try to keep him in maybe a couple more weeks. But despite all the meds and everything else they were pushing, my body was just kind of shutting down and forcing him out. So by
Mm.
Thursday, I was 7 centimeters dilated, and they were like, we can't keep him in anymore. And I ended up delivering him. And after the fact, they found that my placenta had actually ruptured,
Oh.
which thank God we delivered him because if not, it would have been a worse situation.
Mm. And did you have support at the hospital? I'm guessing your parents?
Yes, my
Yeah.
parents were there, my sister was there, so in the room when I delivered, it was actually my mom was right behind me, my sister was holding a leg, my best friend was holding a leg, so it was a super supportive and, like, so much love in that room, and I honestly wouldn't have had it any other way, it was beautiful, but my dad did call my ex-husband and tell him she's actually having the baby today, which he knew I went into the hospital days before, and he chose really not to check in and ask questions. So I just kind of let it be. Um, so he did show up that night after my dad called and said that Cam was born. And it was not a good situation at the hospital. He stormed down the hallway screaming at my dad, saying that I was keeping the baby from him already, and it was all this craziness and drama. He was escorted out by security, and it was a little bit of a nightmare, but, yeah, he ended up coming 2 days later and finally meeting him in the NICU, and he had kinda cooled off a bit, and yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the happy part of your story. Well, that's happy having the baby, I know, but
Yes, of course.
I wanted to hear a little bit about were you raising Cam still at your parents at that point?
I was. So I stayed at my parents' that whole time, and they definitely had a huge hand in helping me when he was a baby and raising him. My mom and she worked part-time, so I went back to work part-time, and we kind of juggled our schedules around each other. So one of us were home with him, and I didn't have to find, outside care. And I mean, it was such a blessing to have them. And, around the time Cam was 7 months old is when I met my husband.
And how old were you then? 25?
I had just turned 26 in
Okay.
August, and I met him in, October.
Okay. Let's talk about how you met him.
So, I did hair and makeup for a client's daughter's quince. I was at
Quince, quinceanera.
yeah, so it's a 15th birthday.
Yes.
Um So I was at the hotel all day doing hair and makeup, and she had begged me to bring a dress with me just in case I wanted to go to the party after. And towards the end of the day, I was exhausted. It was such a long day. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go. Like, the baby's at home with my mom. And I don't wanna leave him any longer, and she was like, "Please just come down for a little bit and see the introduction and, like, the whole beginning of the party." So I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll come down." So she's like, "We're heading down now, just stay in the room, get dressed, clean up, and then come down." So I said, "Okay." So I changed, I freshened up a little bit, and I headed down, and she sat me at a table with some of her family, which I didn't know, and sitting across from me was my husband. We locked eyes a few times, but we actually didn't speak a word to each other the entire night. And when I left, I guess he had asked, who I was, and my client texted me and said, "Hey, my cousin was interested in you. Can I give him your number?" And I was like, "You can absolutely give him my number, but start with I have a newborn and a lot of baggage." And she was like, "I'll tell him." And she did. And he was like, "I don't mind. I'd love to get to know her." So he reached out to me about a week later and we went on our first date. And the rest was kind of history after that. We definitely hit it off and continued to date and get more serious. And he ended up meeting Cam around Christmas time. And yeah, it was more, I think, the way that he embraced Cam and the way he treated him, like, immediately. It was just kind of my heart knew
Yeah.
he was the right fit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what a special person to fall for you and fall for him that quickly. I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious, I wanna go back just a little bit and, this is might sound silly, but I
Mhm.
have never been to a quinceanera. Will you talk a little bit more just about that subject, what it's like? Do you do a lot of clients' hair for those?
So this was the only one I've actually done.
Okay.
So it's the only one I've attended as well. It's very interesting. The girls, they get dressed up with these big, beautiful gowns, and
Yeah.
they do this, like, candle lighting ceremony, and each candle's dedicated to somebody in their family or a friend or a substantial role model in their life.
Mm.
So everyone kind of gets an introduction, and it was beautiful, but it's very interesting. It's very different than, any kind of Sweet 16 or anything that I've been to.
Mhm. Is it religious at all too, or is it just more a
Um,
rite of passage?
I think it's more rite of passage. I think it depends on the family. Hers was a little bit more religious, as they were more, Christian based,
Mhm.
but I don't think all of them are.
Mhm. Interesting. I would love to attend when I
Yeah.
love seeing those dresses and how they, um, the celebrations. So was your is your husband now, was he related to the person having the quinceanera?
Yeah, so the mom, he is her cousin.
Okay. When you say the
So
mom.
my client,
Okay.
so her daughter was the one turning 15. So I
Okay.
guess they would be second cousins.
All right. Okay, well, let's go back a little bit to what was going on with your ex-husband in your son's
Mhm.
life. And before we go on, I forgot to ask you how old Cam is now and how old you are.
So I turned 36 in August,
Okay.
and
Oh, you look so
Cam
young.
oh, thank you. And Cam is about to be 11 on February 5th, so
Wow.
I know,
Okay.
he's so big. It's so crazy.
And you have other children too with your
I
husband. What's your
do.
husband's name so we don't have to just call, or are you okay with talking about his name?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. His name's Steven.
Okay, Stephen. So you have more children with Stephen, right?
We have one more son.
One more. Okay.
His name's Leighton.
Okay. And I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about that piece because I know we had a
Mhm.
discussion about as Cam has grown up, he's had questions. Does he see his biological father? Like, how is it with blending the family? I mean, I know that Stephen came into your life when Cam was just a baby, which is
Mhm.
different than when a step parent comes in and the children are already older. And so, how did you blend that, and how are you continuing to blend that?
So I think at first it was really hard. I I don't think they met until Camden's first birthday. And that first initial meeting wasn't the best. But I think through the years it gradually got better. And I think the more my ex-husband saw Steve's relationship with Cam and how much he loved him and took care of him, I think he took his ego out of it a little bit and realized that, even though it is another man raising his child, it's probably the best man to be doing it.
Mm.
And today they're actually close. I mean, I say that a little loosely, like they're not best friends, but I would say that my ex-husband actually talks to my husband more than me.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. But they have a really good relationship. I think again, it's like he knows who Steven is through and through at this point, and he knows that Cam is in really, really good hands with him.
Okay. Does he spend time with Cam?
Um, it's very scattered. There's been phases in the last 11 years where he's taken him multiple times a week and they've done something or they've gone to dinner or spent time with, Cam's other siblings from, his father's side. And there's been times that he hasn't seen him for months. So it's a little inconsistent. Now that Cam has a phone, they do text, and I think the communication's a little better because they can directly speak. But he doesn't really go over to their house or spend, I would say, quality time with them at this point. It's more they'll come to baseball games or, a birthday party or something like that, but it's not it's not the relationship I would hope for them, but I think it's the best it's gonna get at this point. He does have 3 other kids,
Oh,
and yeah, so it's just with time and everything else,
is
he's
one
pulled in a lot of different directions, so
Cam is or
I would say his dad.
his dad? Okay. Because
Yeah.
I think I remember you telling me that his dad had a baby around the same time Cam was born?
Yeah, so they're about 7 months apart, I believe,
Okay.
him and his sister, so they were both born in 2015.
But they don't really spend time together, it sounds like.
I mean, again, at certain points, they have,
Mhm,
and I think when they're together, they're all great,
mhm.
um, but it's just the consistency isn't fully there. But you know how kids are, like, when kids spend time together, it's like time has never really lapsed in their
Yeah.
relationship, so that is nice. So, he saw them for Christmas, we spent time with all of them, and we blended our Christmas Eve together so all the
Oh,
kids could
that's
be
nice.
together. Yeah, my ex's mom actually she plays a huge part in actually both my boys' lives, which is really nice.
That is
Um
nice.
yeah, she has maintained a very nice relationship with Cam, the past 11 years, and then when I had Leighton, she has fully embraced him as her own as well, doesn't leave him out of anything, and shows up to every game or activity, birthday. She's really great.
And I think that that's fantastic. You didn't come from a blended family, it sounds like.
No,
No, you didn't.
not
So
at all. Nope.
you're learning as you go along.
Yeah,
But I
definitely.
think I love it when I hear that grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins embrace blended families and don't make anything difficult or take sides. I know I always felt so uncomfortable because I had I was very close with my own grandparents. My mother died when I was a child, and her parents, she was an only child, and we remained close with them. But I had a series of step siblings, stepmothers and step siblings. And I do remember some holidays, some Christmases where there was a problem because they didn't really want to give gifts to all the step siblings. They only wanted to give gifts to their own grandkids, and it was awkward. And I
Yeah.
just remember, now that I'm an adult, I don't have a blended family, but my husband has some blending in his family,
Mhm.
and I've always been, aware to make everybody feel included at the holidays when it comes to gifts and that sort of thing. There's not special treatment for the original bio
Right.
kids or whatever you want to call it. So I
Yeah.
commend that. Yeah.
Yeah, she's done a really good job, like, navigating our relationship, and even when things weren't great between us, she was always there, and she wasn't picking sides, and her main focus was on the kids, and that's really, I think, what brought our relationship to where it is now. Like, when you focus on your child and what their needs are, and you really want to shape how they view their upbringing, it changes a lot.
Hmm. Does it I know also I thought you mentioned to me that Cam was curious maybe when he was a little bit younger why he had a different last name than his brother or that you, and how did you handle that? Because I'm sure that's a really common situation.
Yeah, I mean, I was honest and he knows that, his father is his biological father, and I don't know how much he fully understand at that time. He started questioning it when my youngest son was probably about 1, so he was maybe 6.
Yeah,
So, what he understood from biological and step and, all of those things, you try to break it down the best you can, but it's very hard sometimes.
of course.
But, and I just explained, me and your dad, we created you and, that made you who you were, but we didn't work out. And, I was lucky enough to meet daddy, which is Steven, he calls him daddy.
Mm.
And he's been the one that's raised you and we've created this family and then we created your brother. So your last name is tied to your dad, which I do still carry. My last name actually is legally hyphenated, so I do still have a tie to Cam.
Oh, okay.
Um, I did that just I felt weird fully dropping it when my son did have that last name.
Mhm.
So I don't actually go by it and I don't really write it on many papers. But I do still carry it and I feel like I don't know, in case of emergency purposes or something, if somebody didn't believe I was his mom or you just never know. So I do still have that tie to him, and I did explain that. And then I explained, that my husband's last name and, your stepdad that's raising you, this is his last name. And, Leighton is biologically his, like their blood. So he has his last name. So it is hard to explain, and you try to break it down the best you can. And, um, he's had more questions a little bit through the years, but I think the older he gets, when he keeps asking the same question, it's like small pieces are finally starting to click a little bit more.
Yeah, he's getting older and he is understanding how the world works maybe a little bit better. I
Yeah.
think
And
I
it's
Go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah. No, you go
No,
ahead.
because when I think about it, it is a foreign concept for him to imagine me and his biological father together because he's never witnessed it. So that thought process is probably very strange to him because
Yeah.
he's never physically seen us together in that way. So
But I really like that you did the hyphenated and that Steven was okay with that and understands why you
mhm.
did that. I haven't heard that too much, and I think that's a great, way to handle it so that
Yeah.
you're bridging that space. I mean, I know that I've had people on and we've discussed adoptions where the step parent adopts the kid. Now, in this case, I guess that probably well, I don't wanna guess anything. Did you ever discuss that concept, or was that just not okay since he's still involved with his father?
So, yeah, it's a very weird place to be
Yeah.
because as much as we would love that, his father does still have, legal rights to him, and he does still have somewhat of a relationship with him. So unless he were to fully, you know, relinquish his rights, then my husband couldn't adopt him.
Mm.
But we've been looking into other avenues because we do travel and, we do a lot of things with the kids and, you know, it is kind of scary to think that if something were to happen to me and we were abroad or something, my husband actually has no legal right to Cam.
Mm.
So we have talked about getting it's like a guardianship
Mhm.
for him, a legal guardianship where it won't do anything to his father's rights, but it
Mhm.
does give Steve some legal rights to Cam in case of, emergencies or decision making or, something like that.
That's really smart, and that's something that you don't even think about.
No. Yeah.
That's yeah, that sounds like a smart thing to do, and I'm also sitting here thinking about we've talked about Steven and your ex-husband, but how about your ex-husband's wife, as a stepmother? How does that work? Do things work smoothly with her when Cam is with them?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's fairly smooth. I in the beginning it was really hard. I think I because she was a part of our friend group, I
Mm.
took their relationship very hard. Um, and it took a while for me to come to terms with their relationship. And I also think because she got pregnant so early on and had a baby with him, like I did feel kind of robbed of that image that you always have of like, you're having your first baby, you go to the hospital, you're with your husband, you have those moments and those memories. And I definitely didn't have that and that spousal support through my entire pregnancy and, in labor and delivery. So I definitely was a little resentful of her for a while because I feel like she kind of stole my husband and then she got the things that I wanted.
Mm.
Um, but, I went to therapy and I worked out, all of my feelings and, really came to terms with everything. And, I think obviously being with my husband and moving on and having such a solid relationship with him, it definitely helped mend that relationship with her and my feelings towards her.
Mhm.
And yeah, it took a few years, but I think we're all in a really good place now. Um, Yeah, like, we could be around each other, we talk, like, we're totally fine.
That's so great. That is so great. I'm sure in the early days it was hard to share your son too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was hard to kind of, like, let him go and be with them, and you kind of lose control a little bit, and I am a little bit of a control freak. So, like, when you're giving your most, like, prized possession to somebody else, like, it's very hard.
Yeah, I understand that. But the other thing I wanted to just we already talked about it a little bit, but one of the biggest things I like to talk about is the outside support from family and friends. And
Mm.
again, I think we talked about how much of that you had. And I like to emphasize that on this show because that was something so huge for me. And I feel like it kind of kept my sanity, that I had so
Mhm,
much, from grandparents, from aunts, uncles, cousins that I still have to this day, and I
mhm.
think that that's such an important thing for children to have. I mean, it was important for you to have while you were
Yeah,
navigating all this, but I think for kids, no matter what's going on at home, and it sounds like you've built a wonderful, stable home life, but I do think that that extended family, can just build that much more confidence and security for kids. So I don't know if you want to share anything about that more than what you already have, but
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, between, my parents, they took me into their home with a newborn and really just helped I would say guide me, but, like, without, without putting too much pressure on the way that they would have done things, they really let me have control of the situation. And just knowing that they were there, and if I needed them, they would step in, but like really letting me have that full newborn experience. Like, they definitely weren't getting up in the middle of the night with me, I could tell you that. Um, but knowing that they were there, like, there were definitely times when, like, because he was a newborn, he had a lot of stomach issues and, like, his reflux and, all of those things.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were times that I just couldn't get him to stop crying, and it would be,
Mm.
all through the night, hours and hours, and I would be a zombie, and I would
Mm.
just 4 in the morning, I'd roll into my parents' bedroom, and I would be like, "Mom, I need help." And she would get up and she would help me. And, sometimes just the change of like person or human, the
Yes.
baby feels somebody else. And if I was frustrated because I couldn't get him to stop crying, maybe her calmness is what ended up calming him down. So, it was nice to have that support there.
Mm.
And just, it was really nice seeing my dad with him. My dad raised 2 girls, and he has 2 brothers, and they all had girls. So there were no boys in the family,
Yeah.
and I brought in the first grandchild, and it was a boy, and that was, like, my dad's pride and joy,
Aw.
and it was just really sweet to see him with Cam, and he kind of my dad softened up so much with a baby. It was just so cute, and, I loved watching that relationship grow, and unfortunately, my dad passed when Cam
Oh.
was 5.
Oh.
So, that was a really hard
Mm.
time because Cam and he'll even tell you to this day, my dad was Cam's best friend. Like, they were like this. So, that was a really, really rough thing to go through, but having those memories make me, so happy, and I can still look back at my phone and see all the videos and all the pictures, so it's really nice to have that. But, outside of my parents, like, my best friend Stephanie, she was like I said, she was holding a leg when I was delivering Cam, and she was just there every step of the way, and same thing with my sister. And yeah, it's like I almost feel like friends turn more into family in those situations, and they just show up for you, and they
Uh-huh.
just kind of know what you need in those moments, and they just don't let you fall.
Your friends are the family that you got to pick and
Yeah,
create, right? And
yeah,
I have
absolutely.
that as well, and I'm endlessly appreciative of having that. It's
Yeah,
and as you continue to grow, here I'm at the other end where I've got my kids are grown and I'm sort of dealing with a different aspect of life of
mhm,
having adult children and how to parent with adult children, which is very different. And those friends over time, especially if they're going through a similar thing are gold because your
mhm,
parents do pass on and the friends hopefully stay with you and they're in the same stages. And I mean,
yeah.
what do you think is the single most support you've had that's helped you get you where you are now?
Honestly, I would say my dad. I
Yeah.
mean, I think in the beginning, I don't know if I mentioned this when we talked earlier, I was so scared to tell him that, like, my ex-husband left the house. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm petrified. My dad is going to freak out. I am pregnant. I'm getting a divorce, like, we're separated." Like, I just feel like it's all the things that, you're going against all the norm, right? And
Yeah.
I thought my dad was going to lose it.
Hmm.
But my dad ended up being the most supportive person. And he was a businessman, he was an entrepreneur, and I feel like I definitely took a lot from him in that aspect. So, I think that also led to me opening my salon and, you know, the business aspect of my life. I think, I follow a lot of his footsteps in that way.
And hopefully he had enough influence on Cam that maybe Cam will remember. I'm thinking about this because my father also died when my kids were 7 and 10, and
Mhm.
he was a huge influence on me, also an entrepreneur, and my kids are both entrepreneurs now, and yeah, I felt so robbed for them,
Yeah.
and for him. It's tough.
Yeah. I get
But
that feeling.
yeah, but
Definitely.
I feel also so happy that they got to spend that quality time with him,
Yeah,
and even my own grandparents, their great-grandparents. So, I think those early years leave a lasting impression. I think those early years
absolutely.
are so important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Cam, like I said, he'll still talk about him.
Yeah.
And he says he still sees him. He has dreams and he
Aw.
comes to him. So
Oh,
it's been almost 6 years and I've still never had a dream with my dad in it, but my son does all the time apparently. So
I love that.
yeah,
I love that. Yep. I think that we're still connected to them, but that's a whole other subject. But
absolutely.
I do. It's weird as this 2026 has started. I'm kind of in this place very deeply on thinking about consciousness and what happens after we die. And I really do believe that we stay connected and how that reflects back on where we are in the world and remembering that we're all connected. And anyway,
Yeah.
I don't want to go down that path, but I've actually been working on a grief certification, and a lot of that is talking about grief over people passing and how we can stay connected to them. And so I love that Cam feels it.
Yeah,
He'll probably
I
feel it the
agree.
rest of his life,
I hope. I really do.
and that's a conduit for you too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are coming to the end,
Hmm.
and I just like to ask my guests if they have any other words of wisdom or thoughts from their own experiences that they'd like to share. And I'd love to hear if you have anything else that we didn't talk about. And also you can share anything else that you're doing right now that you're excited about, whatever you want to say.
Well, so I opened my salon, my like storefront salon, 3 years ago in August. And right at the 3-year anniversary, I signed papers and took on the unit next to me. And I am expanding into the next unit. So we are actually taking down a portion of the wall in between. And yeah, I'm taking on some more things for the salon
Good for
this
you.
coming year. So we've been working really hard on it, a lot of construction, a lot of craziness, but I'm really excited about it for this year.
That's so great. And you've got obviously Cam's in school. Your youngest, tell me his name one more time. I'm so sorry, I forgot.
Leighton.
Leighton. And how old is he?
Hmm. He is 6.
Okay, so he's really young, but he's in first
Yeah,
grade
he's
this
in
year?
first grade.
First
Yeah,
grade. So you've
yeah,
got a little breathing room.
a little bit.
A little bit.
Well,
Uh,
I'm like,
I
I swear, by the time you drop them off and have to get in cart line to pick them up, it's like you have no time. But we try our best.
yeah, I remember those days well. Well, congratulations on all of that, and again, do you have anything else you'd like to share just on life, on based on your experience that you think would be
Just
helpful?
I mean, just when you think it's really bad, it's always gonna get better, and you just have to keep moving forward because it's gonna be okay. It really is.
That's great advice or wisdom, whatever you want to call it, but I love it
Yeah.
because I think there's so much truth to that. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can't give up.
can't give up. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this and for being here and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And I'm definitely going to come by and meet you in person next week.
Yes, I would
Okay.
love that. I
Okay.
totally would love that.
Okay. That sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.